Ooh. What's up, guys? Dan here from the Headwaters Kayak Shop, and I'm making my way up to Mount Lassen to go paddle Manzanita Lake today. And as you can tell, it is cold. We're gonna go for a paddle anyways, because today I want to talk to you about how to prepare yourself for cold weather paddling. So we made it here to Manzanita Lake. It's warmed up a little bit. I think it's got to about 40 degrees, but still a pretty chilly paddle. So what I want to do today is talk to you guys a little bit about what I would wear on any given day out paddling, from really cold weather like immersed conditions to, hey, I'm just gonna go paddle flat water and I want to make sure that I'm comfortable, I'm somewhat dry, or at least if I get a little wet, I'm not gonna get cold. All right, you guys, so I want to get talking about gear. I want you guys to extend your paddling season. I don't want you to hang it up just because like, oh, it's gonna be cold, I just don't know. So we're gonna talk about just basic stuff to start with. Say it's just in your area, like in Lodi right now, it's 60 degrees. It's not cold, but you want to have, you don't want to be uncomfortable. So basic things are going to help you out. If I'm just going to wear street clothes, or maybe you just got your kayak, you don't have any dry gear yet, what do you have in your closet that can help you out? I'm just going to break down what I'm wearing right now. This jacket right here, waterproof, breathable jacket. This is my rain jacket. But what it also does is it acts like a shell. It keeps the wind off. If I get water drips, this will keep the drips off. Definitely a nice piece of gear to have. Rain jackets range from 60 bucks to, 400 bucks. But a nice outer layer. You'll see I've been wearing a beanie today. It's cold outside and most of your heat escapes through your head. So a beanie or some sort of a hat that's gonna keep you warm. Also, I know a lot of people that wear these right here. In summertime, it's good for sun protection. But in wintertime, it just adds another layer. If you wanted to wear that buff, it's just a little bit more warm. If your mouth gets cold, you can kind of pull it up and you can, just keep yourself warm. Underneath that, I've got a wool quarter zip shirt. And this shirt's awesome because it keeps me warm even if I'm wet. Even if it's like a long sleeve running shirt or maybe a long sleeve sun shirt and you put a couple of layers on, that's gonna keep you warm even if you do get some splash or a little bit of wetness on it. And then as my base layer, what I have on is a Cockpits. It's called a wool core layer, but again, just a thin wool shirt. A lot of people will have rash guards, or maybe, Target has some synthetic clothes. In fact, I think I brought a piece. Yeah, here we go. Here's some stuff that literally just came out of my closet. These are just like New Balance synthetic pajamas. These ones are simple, man. I got these at Target and I think these were like, 20 bucks or something like that, but will keep you warm. And if you put a shell, or like what I have is like some quick dry pants over the top of that, you'd be surprised how comfortable that'll make you. Here's another example of a piece of gear that I use all the time. It's a REI t-shirt. I got it on the closeout rack. I think I got this shirt for $9. Again, it's polyester, so it's gonna keep you warm even when it gets wet. The golden rule with base layering is basically, you guys, stay away from cotton. What cotton does is it soaks up water, and when it gets wet, it pulls the heat away from your body, whereas something like wool or polyester or polypropylene is insulating you even if it gets cold and wet. Just the nature of the fibers. They still have insulating qualities even when it's wet. So hopefully you guys have some of that stuff in your garage, and that's good enough to get you out there and get you going. But I'm gonna show you some stuff that really, really changes the game if you wanna paddle 12 months out of the year, or if you're in a place where it gets really cold. These things make all the difference. Also, socks. I forgot to mention that, but that makes such a huge difference in your base layering. I wear wool socks, but same is true. Stay away from cotton, wool or synthetic. So literally, if we were looking at my kit, 100% wool. I got a wool beanie, wool base layer, wool sweatshirt, wool leggings, and wool socks. All merino wool. People say wool's itchy, but if you get a good merino wool, it's really not itchy. It is a little bit more expensive, but this same piece of gear, I'm going on 13 years. All right, so I'm kind of stripped down to my base layers here, and I wanted to talk to you about a few things. The first is my go-to and probably the most important piece of gear that I own, or the most used piece of gear I own, and that is my Cockpits Gore-Tex bibs. And the reason I like these is they're almost like waders. They're overalls, but they have waterproof Gore-Tex feet in them. So like a pair of waders has those big neoprene feet and they're bulky. These feet I like because they go right over my socks and still fit into my tennis shoes. And the best part is, at the end of the day, when you're done walking and getting in and out of the water, you slide your bibs off and you basically have your pajamas on. So at the end of the day, you can just put some pants over the top, hit the heater in the car, and be all warm and toasty, as opposed to having to get changed and being soggy and wet. There you go, just goes right up over the top. And on a flat water day like today, I might go out just like this, or I might throw a windbreaker over the top. But there are days where I'm gonna actually go be in the water. And maybe I'm floating a river, or maybe I'm going to the coast and I'm going fishing. And I have one more piece of gear that really complements this setup well. Let me show you that. So a piece of gear that mates really well with a pair of bibs is a dry jacket like this. It's not a dry top because it doesn't have a latex neck gasket, but for most recreational paddlers, you don't really want the latex neck gasket in a flat water situation like this. I do have one if I'm floating rivers or if I'm going off on the coast. I can pair a dry jacket with these bibs, the 2 tunnels, and create a pretty dry solution. But this is what I wear 90% of the time if I need a dry jacket. I'm not really gonna name brands because I don't even think they still make this particular jacket anymore. A lot of companies make something like this. Oh, nice. And what I like about it is it's got an open neck. So if I wanna just be out paddling like today, I'm not worried about like something tight choking my neck. I can have this nice and open. It's got latex wrist gaskets, which means if I scoop up water as I'm paddling, or if I'm splashing around, or if I need to grab something, I'm not getting water up my wrist. And the other thing I really like about the bib combination is I've got 2 tunnels on this. So this tunnel goes down, and then my jacket also has 2 tunnels. That's meant for a spray skirt to go up in here. I'll show you that in a minute. And then I can roll these 2 guys together. The bibs and the jacket, I just roll them up almost like the top to a dry bag. If I get about 3 good rolls in here, and then I pull this down over the top, I've got a really dry situation that even if I go in the water, the only place I'm really gonna get water is in my neck. And if I'm worried about that, I can always zip this up. And it creates a fairly tight water situation. It's not 100% watertight, but fairly versatile. I almost never do that. I like it. I like to breathe a little bit. And then the alternative to something like this would be a full dry suit. Now, of course, I'm gonna touch on this. If you're a serious kayaker, if you're paddling the ocean, or if you're paddling all winter in a really cold place, or if there's even a slight bit of potential that you might swim, this piece of gear right here is lifesaver. And it's just simple. It's a 1-piece fully dry suit, all the way from the feet to the neck gasket to the wrist gaskets. You can just literally put this on over your base layers and be watertight, good to go. It's got the double tunnel here for your skirt. Cockpits, level 6, NRS. A lot of people make something like this, but they're an expensive piece of gear, and to get a really good one is gonna cost you $700 to $1,200. With that said, this Cockpit Gore-Tex Meridian suit that I think I've had for 10, 11 years, and it served me well, and I definitely use it all the time. But for lake paddling and casual stuff like this, it's overkill. We're gonna go with what I've got on today. Okay, so let's talk about keeping your feet warm. There's several different ways to do this, but the most important part is if your feet are wet, they're gonna get cold. If your feet are dry, they're gonna stay happy. So a couple ways to do that is number 1, NRS boundary shoes or something like that that's a waterproof boot, and it comes up about calf high, which allows you to step down in the water and stay nice and dry. What I have going on is my bibs, or also Cockpit makes something called a Tempest pant, which is waterproof, breathable, but with the feet in there, with the dry feet. That's a really nice thing to have. Definitely something I recommend. And then over the top of that, I just run a pair of neoprene booties, or if I have my river shoes, like my Astrals, I'll wear those. The neoprene is 5mm thick and definitely adds some good insulation. Tell you what, guys, going through all this old gear, I'm finding all sorts of stuff that I'm like, I could probably use to replace some of this stuff. You know, my booties are kind of tearing at the seams. My dry suit has a couple of bust seams. It's been all well loved. I remember the first time I got any winter paddling gear. It was, I don't know, back in 2007 or so. I just got into paddling. And like many of you guys, maybe this summer you got into the sport and you got your gear and you're like hot and heavy into it, and then all of a sudden like October hits and you get your first cold night and you're like, oh, now what do I do? And I went ahead and I think I found a used dry suit on one of our club pages, which was like $300. And I didn't know anything about much of this stuff, but I knew I had enough base layers, like kicking around the house, to be warm, and then I just wanted to be dry. I didn't really care about anything else. So I would just wear whatever clothes or whatever pajamas I had and throw the dry suit over the top, and away I went. And I never regretted that. From that first year, I fell in love with the off season because there's no people out there. The other thing is you get to experience maybe the same body of water in a completely different light in fall or wintertime or springtime, as opposed to just seeing it in summer kind of peak months. So another thing is I paddle a sit inside kayak. Most all winter, I want to be inside my kayak. I want to have a skirt around that cockpit because it adds a layer of insulation and it keeps me from getting wet, and as I paddle. And even with dry gear on, if you're wet, you're going to get colder. So having that skirt and having your lower body kind of insulated and encapsulated, I really like it for wintertime paddling. That's not to say if you have a sit on top, you can't still go out there and have a good time. Guys fish all winter long. Today I've got my Eddy Line Sitka. Yeah, this has kind of become my baby these days. I've been using this thing most of the season. And as you can see, get in there and put the skirt on, nice and dry. And that's where the spray skirt comes in. I use the full neoprene one, but honestly, depending on your kayak, they make nylon ones, they make lap covers. Basically, it just clips around your cockpit and keeps the water out. And depending on your boat, sizing is going to be totally different. Some have big, long, open cockpits, and maybe you could just get a lap cover for it. Most touring kayaks will have a full skirt option. Just pull this guy on. They do get a little tighter once you add a few layers of clothes too. There we go. Now as the water comes down, it's going to hit my skirt and shed off. Loosen up the straps now that I've got a few more layers on. People always ask me about what's the right life jacket for them. Man, you really got to try them on. I like Stolquist, I like NRS. If I'm sit on top fishing, I'm gonna use something completely different than when I'm in my touring kayak. When I'm touring, I like something low profile. I like the center pocket for my phone and quick access for my knife. But if I'm on a river, it's a rescue vest. If I'm fishing, it's a Chinook. So lots of different variations depending on your type of paddling. What you do want to make sure is that you're not sitting on the back of your life jacket. Or if you are, that you have a nice thin back as opposed to a thick back. So there you go. I'm pretty well ready to go, but there's one more last thing. My hands. If your hands get cold, you want off the water. We were actually out here paddling the other night, and the water was, God, it had to be like 34 degrees. It was so cold, bone chilling cold. And nothing makes you want to get off the water faster than if your hands are cold. So let's talk about a couple of options. Option one, something like this. These are actually bike gloves, but any sort of neoprene thin gloves will make a big difference. And I don't like to get too thick. It all depends on how cold it is. Like they make like a full neoprene, heavy duty, like waterproof glove, but that's really hard to grip the paddle. I prefer like the little Hydroskin gloves. And what I run is actually a thing called Pogies. Let me show you guys those. That's what I'll be using today, is these guys, because I really like the feeling of my hand on the paddle. I feel like my hand on the paddle is my connection to the blade. It gives me all my control. And what these allow me to do, these go around the paddle, and I can just slide my hand in and grip the paddle, and they are so incredibly warm. Your hands go in there, they're neoprene, like 5 mil thick, but I can still grip the paddle with my hands, and then it's really easy to get my hands in and out, no problem. And this will keep you warmer than any pair of gloves. These things are incredible. In fact, you'll start sweating. If you're paddling and you're getting a workout, it won't be too long before you're like, I need my hands to breathe. But I tell you what, they are so comfortable and so cozy when it's cold out there and you just can't get your hands warm. These are clutch. Okay, I'm suited and booted. I got my life jacket, I got my base layers, I got my waterproof breathable layers, I got my gaskets, got my skirt. I'm ready to go. But I tell you what, this hat's getting a little hot. I'm gonna switch back. The old Headwaters lid here. And we're gonna go with that. So another hard thing about winter paddling is trying to keep your feet dry. Like I said, if your feet get cold, your whole body's cold. So oftentimes in a situation like this, I would just step down in the water. And obviously I've got a dry suit on, so I could definitely do that. But I want to show you guys a way to get in so you don't have to get your feet wet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my paddle back across the back of my cockpit coaming. And I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to wrap it around the coaming and the paddle. Now I'm going to take my other hand and put it on the paddle shaft over here. Now I can just slide my butt right in and now I'm launched without getting my feet wet. Oh, can't flip over because I'm using this like an outrigger. Now I'm in, I'll go ahead and button my skirt up, tuck myself in. I'm honestly gonna be too warm today. The sun's coming out now, and I bet it's probably gonna warm up to, I don't know, 45, 50 degrees here before too long. But the water is still super, super cold. All right. Some cold water. Brain freeze. Oh, it's so cold. No bad weather, just bad gear. So I want to encourage you guys to not miss out on the fall paddling season. Look through what you have, and maybe you buy one piece of gear, a couple pieces of kit this year that's going to extend your paddling season. I guarantee you're going to find whatever you spend on it, if you get out there and use it, will be worth whatever investment you put in. Also, if you guys want to learn more and you're in the Northern California area, tomorrow at the shop, that's October 16th, we're going to be doing this same kind of seminar in person, and we'll have way more gear because obviously we'll be in the store, and we're actually doing discounts on anything you order the night of, or if you want to call in and order it, we can even ship that stuff out. Swing by the shop or get in touch with the shop tomorrow, and I think the sale will be going for the next week or so. But let's get you in some gear that's going to extend your paddling season. I'm going to go for a paddle, you guys. Enjoy the rest of the day. Until next time, this is Dan, wishing you happy paddling. We'll see you on the next one.